Well, today I want to start by reading some headlines, some news headlines. And when I do, what I want you to think about is what stirs up inside you. When you hear these different headlines, what feelings and emotions do you feel when you hear them? Maybe joy, maybe anger, frustration, rage, whatever it might be. And to be clear, there is no responding, no talking, no clapping, nothing. And I know we can do this because we are all grown, mature adults. At least most of us are. Okay, on that note, I want to read this first headline out to all of you. First one, Jazz Pelicans, 2 NBA teams, coaches and refs kneel during national anthem as NBA returns. That's the first headline just to think about, just to let it stir. And then a similar one but different. Orlando Magic player Jonathan Isaac stands for national anthem and doesn't wear Black Lives Matter shirt. Again, just think about these headlines. Maybe you're on this side, you're that side. You got these feelings inside of you that are just kind of going and stirring inside you. That's the first set. Now check out these ones right here. First one, thousands crowd beaches, British beaches, ignoring social distancing and risking COVID-19 exposures. That's the first one. Just kind of let it stir inside you. And then a similar one, but different. Check this one out right here. Fight breaks out on flight between drunk, maskless passengers. Okay, wherever you are, again, just kind of think about what stirs up inside you. Luckily, these last two are not controversial whatsoever. Okay, so we'll get to them. First one, check this one out. God save America from Biden. Okay, not controversial at all. Let's go to another one, similar but different. Historians will likely rank Trump as one of the worst presidents. Okay, so let that stir up what feelings come inside you. Excuse my language for a second. Did any of these headlines just kind of sort of piss you off? Okay, anybody angry? Anybody need a hug? Actually, no hugs right now. But seriously, just in hearing these headlines, these different headlines, I'm just guessing that it stirs up different feelings inside of us. And more than any other time, it feels like most of the things that we're seeing and hearing and reading about and taking in stir up different feelings inside of us. Whether it's a conversation with a coworker, something our crazy relative shares on Facebook, whether it is a news headline, whether it's a phone call with our dad that's just a little bit different than we are. Again, most of the things we're taking in seem to stir up feelings inside of us that anger us. Most of the things we're taking in, they stir up feelings that irritate us. Most of what we're seeing and hearing and taking in right now stir up irritation. They stir up irritation. This week I was thinking about it, and I was trying to think about something that stirs us up and irritates us. And the first thing that came to mind for me was a mosquito bite. If you have a mosquito bite right now, I just want you to look at that mosquito bite. Okay, focus in on it, but don't scratch it. Okay, I double dog dare you not to scratch that thing, right? But so we get a mosquito bite and it irritates us, right? It gets inflamed, and the more irritated and inflamed it comes, the more it stirs us up. And we start scratching and scratching. It just keeps growing and becoming more irritated and more stirred up. Earlier this summer, my youngest son, Anderson, he got a mosquito bite. I don't know what it meant, but he got a mosquito bite right dead center of his forehead. Because he's 5 years old and he can't, control himself, and it's irritating him. He just kept scratching and scratching and scratching, and this thing just kept growing and growing and growing, and it turned into like this giant cone out the front of his forehead. This is what most of our world feels like right now, doesn't it? Most of our world, things we're seeing, hearing, taking in, reading, it's just kind of like a mosquito bite, from fake Facebook posts to things that our boss says at work and we can't challenge them because of who they are, from news stories. It feels like most things in our life are stirring up irritation. So that's others, and that's the world. A question for you: what are you stirring up? What are you stirring up? We talked about the world, we talked about others and our crazy uncle that we have, but I'm just wondering, what are you stirring up? Looking at your life, your day, your week, what are you stirring up through your words, your actions, what you say, what you passive-aggressively say? What are you stirring up? What am I stirring up, right? What am I stirring up? How am I using my words? How am I using my actions? One step further, though, what about the church? What is the church stirring up? And more specifically, what is this church stirring up? Our network churches, what are you stirring up? What feelings are we causing? Our world is so crazy. It's so stirred up more than ever, but what are we stirring up? Last week, we started a new series simply called The Church. How to be the church in a crazy world. Never more needed, is it? The church, how to be the church in a crazy world. Before we keep going, I just want to welcome everyone here to Embrace. My name is Adam. I'm one of the pastors here. I am so thankful that I get to be here today, and I'm so thankful that every single one of you are with us today as well. At all of our campuses, we want to welcome you. At all of our network churches, if you're joining us online right now, on YouTube, on Facebook, if you're listening on iTunes, however you're hearing my voice, we are so excited and honored that you've decided to come and worship with us here today. And my hope, my prayer for every last one of us, including myself, is that God would come and speak to us, that he'd encourage us, that he'd challenge us, that we would not leave the same person that we were when we came in or we sat down and we opened up our computer. We would not be the same, but God would change us. Now, just as we started today, when we think about things stirring us up, we typically think about things stirring up negative things. We typically think about things being stirred up in a not so good way, right? We think about things stirring up irritation is what we typically think about, just like a mosquito bite. And if it's not clear to you, let me just inform you, you do this as well. You do this as well. Why? Because you're a human being. As human beings, we love to stir up others. From complete strangers to our best friend, to our spouse, to our kids, to our siblings, we love to stir up other people. We know exactly what buttons to push, don't we? It's just like we just know exactly what to say and exactly what to do just to get another person going. And on certain days, if we're maybe feeling close to Jesus and maybe we just finished reading our Bibles and praying, then maybe we'll try really hard to just be quiet and not stir other people up, right? It's like on a good day, it's like just keeping my mouth shut is a pretty lofty goal. Like it's kind of high up there. I'm just going to do my best with Jesus in my heart just to not say anything and just to shut up. But what would it look like if we stirred up good things? What would it look like if we stirred up positive things? And what if the goal that Jesus has for our lives is not just that we wouldn't say anything? What if his goal is not for us to just be quiet and keep your mouth shut? But what if instead, as the church and as followers of Jesus, in the midst of a crazy world, what if God's plan for us and God's word for us is that we would stir up good things? Not just be quiet, not just not stir things up. But what if he wanted to use us to stir up good things? Good things. What if, right? Well, at one point, a guy named Paul, possibly a guy named Barnabas, maybe even a woman named Priscilla wrote a letter. And this letter was written to a group of Christians. It was written to a church. We know this letter as the book of Hebrews. And all throughout the book of Hebrews, it is all about Jesus. I mean, the whole thing is about Jesus and the importance of Jesus, and he's what everything else hinges on. He's the focal point, just like we talked about last week. As the church, we are so diverse, and a picture of unity is diversity, right? We are all so different, but the one thing that is non-negotiable is Jesus. The one thing that we all are centered on is Jesus and the core essentials of our faith. Those things are non-negotiable. We are so different, but Jesus is so important. So again, this author is talking about the importance of Jesus and how we should hold on to Jesus. And then they go on to say this. Check this out. Let us consider how to stir one another to acts of love and good works. Let us consider, let us think about how to stir one another, how to spur one another on, how to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. This word good can also translate to the word beautiful or magnificent or praiseworthy. Again, back to our world and other people and often ourselves, we typically tend to stir up irritation, right? Facebook posts, conversations, phone calls. We just say things we regret. We tend to stir up irritation, but God, what does he call us to? He calls us to stir up inspiration. There's two different things we can stir up, just to make it really, really clear. We can stir up irritation or we can stir up inspiration. God, through this author in Hebrews, tells us to stir up inspiration, to stir one another on to acts of love and good works. Stir one another to inspiration. So just a simple question for all of us to wrestle with and answer. It's a really basic question. Looking at yourself, are you more of a mosquito bite or a pep rally? Are you more of a mosquito bite or a pep rally? We're going to get to what that means here just in a second. How can we be the church in a crazy world? Again, stir up inspiration. Now, to be clear, a mosquito bite is very different than a pep rally, isn't it? Very, very different. I don't know if I've ever said this before, but I used to play a little ball back in the day. God, keep us humble, okay? Used to play a little ball, little football that was. I was small, but I was very, very quick. And I played for the mighty Clark Comets. It was actually just the Clark Comets, but I always added the word mighty, and our opponents were always terrified to play against the Comets. I was fearful of my own team. It was so scary. And so we'd have game day come, and everything that day was all about stirring us up and inspiring us. Everything was about inspiring us. And so, like halfway through the day on game day, what we typically do is we'd have ourselves a pep rally, and everyone for the entire school. It was a small town, folks, okay? We take everybody from the school and we meet in the gym, and everyone was cheering, and we were wearing our jerseys because we were cool like that, and people were wearing their letter jackets, and there was cheerleader and pep bands. It was awesome. Each class was yelling its year. For me, it was 2000. Maybe for you it was 1963, 63, or 82, or 2010. I don't know what it was, but we just get ourselves so fired up. So that was the pep rally. And then there was the locker room music. And this is not a joke, I was usually the DJ. I was usually the one who picked out the music. I had many CDs and even a cassette one time snapped in half and broken, okay? So that was not a good day. But I would listen mostly, because it was the only thing I could get past our coach, I'd listen to AC/DC or Rob Zombie. Anybody remember Rob Zombie? Dracula! If you've never heard it, just go listen to it. Actually, don't, because I listened to Dracula this week. It's a terrible song, okay? We just get fired up, and then we get to the game, and pre-game, they would introduce each player, and you'd run through the tunnel, and just to get everybody, really jacked up. And so I can always remember, at tackle, we got a 6'2", 250 stud. I was actually 5'9" on a good day, but he's counting, and he's a two-time All-Stater. It was in choir, but who's really cares, let's not get so technical. Two-time All-Stater, and his mom thinks he's awesome. Adam Weber, it was just like the best thing ever, This is actually a button from my mom that she wore. I don't know why she's not still wearing it, and she gave it to me in a box that she hadn't seen for a long, long time. But anyway, again, that entire day we were stirring up one another. We were getting excited for the game. It wasn't just a pep rally for pep rally's sake. Instead, no, we were inspiring one another, and we were stirring up one another for the game itself. We were stirring one another on to act, to play the game, to do something. One more time, let us stir one another. Let us consider how to stir one another on to acts of love and good works. God, what does he want us to do? Not just keep our mouth shut, not just not stir people up. Instead, God wants us to stir up inspiration. Back to that question we asked earlier. It might make more sense now. Are you a mosquito bite or a pep rally? just being honest with yourself, just kind of looking at your words and your actions and things you kind of passive aggressively say when just looking at everything that you are. Are you more of a mosquito bite or a pep rally that encourages, that spurs one another on, that stirs one another to acts of love and good works? Am I a mosquito bite or a pep rally? And one step further, what about us as a church? In this church, we a mosquito bite or a pep rally that leads to acts of love and good works? Such an important question to wrestle with. And so how do we stir up inspiration to acts of love and good works? Like, how do we do this? We're even told to consider, to think about. The author's telling us to consider these things. How do we do this? How do we stir others on to inspiration? Today, I just want to give us 3 simple, very practical things that we can do, that you and I can all do to stir one another on to inspiration. First thing, it's really, really simple. Find out what stirs you and what stirs others. Want to stir one another on to inspiration? Find out, consider, think about, find out what stirs you and what stirs others. Back in February, anybody remember February? Back in the good old days, right? They were so fun. We could go to Target and touch everything we wanted, hug random strangers. It was back in the good old days. We did a series called The Run Project. And in week 1 of that series, we asked ourselves 3 basic questions I want to highlight again. What's the need? What moves you? What do you have? Again, we're trying to find out what stirs you. What's the need? What moves you? What do you have? What gets you out of bed each day? Why do you feel like God has put you on this earth? What's the need right in front of you? What do you have? If you missed this message or you've maybe forgotten about this message, I want to encourage you to go back online, week 1 of the Run Project, and check it out. So we need to ask these questions of ourselves to find out what stirs us. But we also need to help others ask these questions as well. Why? Because everyone's not stirred by the same things. What lights a fire in your soul might not light up the soul of another. And so instead of stirring up irritation by trying to get everybody to do the exact same thing, encourage your friends and family to ask these questions themselves. What's the need in front of us? For our family members and friends, what moves you? What do you have? What gifts, passions, resources do you have? The starting place for stirring up inspiration. Find out what stirs you and what stirs others. Second thing, and this is so important in my own brain. Second thing, it's really simple. Lead with action. Lead with action. It's not just inspiration for inspiration's sake. There better be a game after the pep rally and the Rob Zombie and everything else. We're not just stirring up inspiration to stir up inspiration. Again, we're called to stir one another on to acts of love and good works. Lead with action. Speaking for me personally, I've never been inspired by the person who talks a lot. Never once been inspired by the person who talks and talks and talks. And all of us know that one person who talks about what they're going to do and what they're going to do and they never do it. Honestly, for me, when I kind of hear that, it just kind of feels like a mosquito bite. Never been inspired by someone who talks, but I'm constantly inspired by people who act. I'm constantly inspired by people who live. Again, more than just talking and talking and talking, and maybe that's you. You talk and you talk and you talk, and you also talk a lot about other people as well and what they're doing and the crazy idea that's kind of foolish. Again, more than talking, I'm always inspired by a person who lives it out, who acts. Because when I see another person live it out, I begin to think to myself, I want to do that. I want to do more of that. And I begin to see the different parts of my life where I'm just going through the motion. I want to do more like that person is doing. And when I see another person doing things, I just also begin to think, if they can do it, I can do it. Like if he can and she can, like what would keep me from do it? Lead with action. Action inspires action. In our divided world, do we want to bring about true change? Stop posting and start living. We know the person who gets on their soapbox every day of the week, and yet you look at their life and it's just like, it looks no different than me. Stop posting and start living. don't want to be a person who talks a lot. I want to be a person who lives a lot. Who lives it out. Who lives before I even think about speaking on things. Lead with action. Back in June, Jacob from our Sertoma campus heard about a need for bikes. He found out that there was this group of people, adults who maybe didn't have a license for whatever reason that needed a bike, or maybe even families that just didn't have the ability to have a bike just for enjoyment in themselves. And so he heard about a need, and he got a group of friends together, and they decided they were going to gather a bunch of bikes, and they worked on them, they fixed it up. They had these work nights where you go and help work on bikes, and then they decided to give out all the bikes for free. And check out what took place.
Well, tonight is an exciting night, kind of a couple weeks in preparation.
It's a run project that turned out to be kind of the great bike giveaway. It's been pretty cool. We decided, heck, let's see if we can gather up some bikes, and there's so many people hurting right now. And so what you're seeing is this bike giveaway.
My favorite pastime of the summer is riding a bike, and I never went without a bike when I was a kid, so I can't imagine not being able to go out and do those kind of activities.
I feel happy about getting this new bike because it goes fast.
Smiles on their faces when they get to test ride their bike and then walk out of here with it is just priceless. It's like the best thing.
Now, when we kicked it off, there were adults that were showing up that didn't have cars. There was one guy who could hardly walk, and he's like, guys, can I have this? This is like my way to get to work. And then on the other hand, there's these kids riding around right now that it's just pure joy on their face. They didn't have a bike, and after tonight, they got one.
Pretty awesome, right? 68 bikes were given away. And let me just tell you about a few of those bikes. One of those bikes went to my neighbor. I mentioned him a couple of months back. His name's Tay. He's the kid that got me the oatmeal cream pie. Tay's bike got stolen several months back, and so we were able to get Tay another bike. One of the bikes went to a little 6-year-old girl who was so excited about getting a bike, she brought her 72 cents with. And when she got her bike, she said, I want to give my 72 cents in hopes that another little person like me can get a bike. Another little kid can get a bike. 4 of those bikes went to 4 foster kids. These 4 kids showed up. They were so excited. They got their bikes and they rode around the parking lot laughing and just having an absolute ball. Well, a few minutes later, they all started coming back to the bike racks and they began to put their bikes back away when one of the volunteers said, hey, guys, what are you guys doing? You get to keep the bikes. These 4 foster kids didn't think they got to bring the bikes home with them. One of the volunteers said literally all 4 jaws on these kids just dropped open. They couldn't believe they got to keep the bikes. Powerful. Jacob, the person who put on the Run Project, he said the one thing that I was reminded of again, anytime you try to do something good or anytime you try to step out and lead with action, you're going to have a whole bunch of people tell you all the reasons it won't work. He says, even if something is clearly from God, like it's like God is saying you need to do this, you're always going to have naysayers. Jacob got fired up and he said, don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. You want to stir up inspiration? Lead with action. Lead with action. Last thing, again, it's really, really simple. Show them what could be. Show them what could be. You want to live an inspiring life that stirs up others? Show them what could be. I said it last week, people hate being told what to do. We hate it. Stop telling people what to do and show them what could be. What does that mean? Oftentimes when we're passionate about something or we get fired up about something, we start telling others that they need to do all the things that we're doing. We get so excited and we start listing off, like you need to start doing this and this and this and this. Like you need to go help and serve at the local banquet. And you need to care for the single parent on your block that doesn't have a job or a home. And you need to speak up for people who can't speak up for themselves. Like you should. And if you don't, well then you're a part of the problem. And aren't you a Christian? And shouldn't you be mentoring a kid and fostering a kid and adopting a kid? And sure, all these things I just mentioned are great. And we absolutely should be doing them, but again, just the approach, it just kind of feels like a mosquito bite. Stop telling them what to do and show them what could be. I mean, imagine if you came alongside that single mom or single dad on your block and they were able to get their own place. They were able to get a job. Through a small, simple act, they were maybe inspired and they were introduced to Jesus for the very first time. And think about that kid that you mentored, that kid you fostered, that kid you had adopted. What if it altered the life of that one kid? And maybe for the first time, they saw that there was a way that they could step out of their circumstances. For the first time, they could step up and see that there was a different way that they could live. Maybe for the first time, they just felt loved. They just felt what love was all about. Again, when you find what stirs you and you lead with action, when you begin to live it out, it'll begin to show people what could be. Instead of telling them and telling them and telling them and irritating them, when you begin to live it out, it'll begin to inspire people. People will begin to ask the question, what if? What if God could use me? What if I could do something? Again, show them what could be. Check out this video here.
I have had 2 miscarriages. My babies, Ava, Grace, and Orion Job. On the anniversary of my loss with Ava in 2017, I did a post on social media, just kind of sharing my heart and my grief that day. And later that afternoon, flowers showed up at my door, and I didn't know who they were from. There was no name on the card. It was just a note of encouragement and sending me love, and it was just, it was such a blessing to me on that day. Ever since then, I've had this idea of, what would it look like if there was something in place that served mothers who've had a miscarriage. And when the Rum Project came about, I was just like, this is what we're gonna do. I knew that it was special to me, but I didn't know if it was gonna be special to others.
We went through the process of trying to have a family, and we were told that that was not an option for us to expand our family through pregnancy. And so we went through the adoption route to have our son Quincy. So we felt like we had kind of made it over the hurdle of the hardships of having a family, and we were so excited. We thought our family was complete with our little bundle of joy. It never occurred to me that I could be pregnant. And so we went through the stages of not believing that that could actually happen until I was in the doctor's office and we heard the heartbeat. And then it was just our little miracle. We reached our 21-week mark, and they told us we were past the point of miscarriage scares or anything like that. They came in and they wanted to do an ultrasound just to make sure everything was okay, see what needed to happen. Several hours after the ultrasound, I was still in the hospital, and several doctors came in. They came in and told me that there was an amniotic fluid leak. They had only read about that happening. It's a 1% chance of happening in your pregnancy. They told us that it would be a miracle to stop her from coming, and that if she did survive, that she wouldn't last very long.
So the beautiful thing about Evermore is that, it is anonymous, so anyone can send a mom flowers. It can be a coworker, it can be a family member, a friend.
It was so unexpected, and I didn't know who sent it at the time. I knew it was Evermore's names. But it was a moment of someone else is thinking about our little girl, and I'm not alone.
Evermore Blooms is the hands and feet of Jesus by just caring for a mom who might feel a little bit invisible. Just being there for her.
God was there all along. And in the moments of just thinking that he wasn't there, and all I could say was, I still believe he was there, and he still is.
If you have something that is truly on your heart and it really came from God, he will provide. And that's definitely been the case for Evermore Blooms.
Wonderful, right? Let's put that up. Every so often, I'll get a text message from Chelsea. She'll text Travis Fink and I at Sertoma Campus Faster, and oftentimes it will be either a picture of a bouquet going out to a mom, or it will be a message from one of the moms who received the gift, the flowers. And every time I always tell her, I'm like, Chelsea, you inspire me. Like, you just inspire me. You stir up inspiration inside of me. To be clear, it's not just that she stirs up these warm, fuzzy feelings, and it doesn't just like stir up feelings of like, isn't that so cool that someone else is doing that? No, she inspires me to action. Like, she inspires me to do something myself. I see what she's doing and this group of women are doing. I begin to ask, like, what if? Like, what's possible? And what can God do in and through me? Like, what does he have for me? Stir up inspiration. So how do we do this, right? How do we do this? Well, there are so many different ways that you can stir up inspiration. So many. In the 2 videos that we showed, both of these are run projects. As a church, we've decided that we want to come alongside of as many people as we possibly can to stir them on, to inspire others with action through run projects. Right now, we have over 20 projects that are currently active. That's 20 projects that anyone can sign up for. If you're a person who's like, gosh, the thought of starting one myself, it's just not how I'm wired. I'm more of a person that comes alongside of a person who's already doing that. If that's you and you're looking for a starting place, you can go to IamEmbrace.com/run project. The projects are all listed there. You can find out who the leader is of that project, message them and say, how can I help? I want to be a part of that. Even myself, this week on Thursday, a couple of friends and I, we're going to be serving up root beer floats around town, offering root beer floats and also the opportunity to be prayed for. If you want to serve up some root beer floats, come find me. I'd love to have you join me on Thursday. Right now, it's me and one other person. That's me and my friends. So I'll take as many as I can get. So if you're interested in joining a run project that currently is, go and sign up. But if you want to start a run project yourself, go for it. What stirs you? We'll come alongside you as little or as much as you'd like to. We'd also help give and provide up to $2,000 for the run project just to help you get started. What is stirring your heart? What has God laid on you? You can apply right now. Right now, again, IamEmbrace.com/run project. I pray that the people of Embrace and all the network churches as well, and anyone who's hearing me, I pray we wouldn't be a person and a group and a church who just talks. Instead, I pray we'd be a person, a group, a church that lives. And never more is it needed for the church to go to the world instead of asking the world to come to us. Never more. Last 200 years, we've gotten it backwards. We've said, the world is broken. All of you need Jesus. Come to us. Speak like us. Look like us. The complete opposite of how Jesus approached things. He's like, no, I love you so much. God's like, I love you so much that I sent my only son, Jesus, to come to you, to run to you, to find you, to minister to you, to serve you. How can we be the church in a crazy world? Stir up inspiration. Let's pray. Gracious Father, Heavenly King, we come before you thankful for who you are. We live in a divided, polarized world that it's just stirring up irritation, just makes me angry. Even me personally at times, I just find myself angry and I'm having a shouting match in my car with a person who doesn't exist that might have a different opinion than I do. Feels like mosquito bites, God. Yet thank you for speaking to us and challenging us, not just to be quiet, that's not the goal, but instead stir up inspiration, to consider how, to think about, to find out. God, I pray that would be us. You would stir our hearts, that we'd know what stirs us and we'd help others to find out what stirs them, that we'd lead with action. We'd show others what could be, yeah, sure, through our words, but more importantly, through our lives. God, we love you. We thank you. We pray all these things in the name of Jesus. All God's people said, amen.